Hey, welcome back, UFO fans, for week number 9 as we get ready for the week 9 picks. If you have watched my previous videos, we did very well this weekend, going 11-1. Can you believe this? I'm going to show you right now on my whiteboard how we did. Check this out, fellas. Hopefully, you guys were successful as me this weekend. We went 4-0 on the money line, 4-0 on the over and unders. Unfortunately, we had that one loss against the spread to go 3-1. That was in the St. Louis Battlehawks game, in which they went for 1 point towards the end after tying the game. Had they gone for 3 points, we would have covered, or two, we would have covered in that game. Anyway, this is one of the reasons why I take the early lines. Hit that like and subscribe button, people, because I really want to hear from you guys and a commentary. It was overall a fantastic weekend because we did go 11-1. However, we want to be undefeated, right? That's the whole purpose, to get these picks right so you guys can run to the sports books or hit your sports apps, whichever ones you choose, whether it's DraftKings, BetMGM, or my favorite, FanDuel. Okay. So you want to do stuff like that because you want to jump on the early lines. This is one of the reasons why I do what I do and try to give you this edge as early as possible. That's why it's important when the lines open up, we look at it and we try to jump on the early lines. I love jumping on the early lines simply because it gives you a betting edge that you're not going to get as the week goes on because things can change. Anyway, I'm going to look at my notes. And before I put any of my whiteboard stuff up, you already saw my 11-1 record for this past weekend. That's going to bring our money line record to 21-11 for the season. So we're 10 games above 500 on that one. My over and under overall at the moment is 15-9. And against the spread, we're 17-10-1, the push being a weekend ago. Okay, 2 weekends ago, I should say. So 17-10-1 against the spread, over and unders at 15-9, and then money lines at 21-11. We wish we could do a whole lot better, obviously, because that means we're making money, right? As long as we're above 500 and we're taking steps to stay above that, that means that we are having some type of success, but we want to have more success as we go along this season. And as we're getting towards the end, playoff time coming, we saw a lot of teams rise up from the crop, and we saw the bad teams continue to play bad. And unfortunately, the Arlington Renegades continue to be a disappointment for me. After starting the season at 3-1, these guys are just heading in the wrong direction to fall to 3-5. We're going to get into some of these matchups. The Houston Roughnecks, we said that they were demoralized just 2 weekends ago in a loss against the Stallions after having command in that game and against the Panthers as well. And now here they are at 3-5. So, again, the Roughnecks sloppy second half. That's the way I look at this. So let's get to some of what we're going to talk about today, because before I put this whiteboard up again, and the whiteboard's going to show exactly what we're trying to get at as far as winning. Going 11-1 was great, and when you saw my previous video, that record is according to how I did with the early lines. It does not have to do with how the lines ended up at the end of the weekend and where it stayed at. So when you look at my previous video, every time I post up on Monday morning, you are going to have to study this video and look at it carefully. I do post up on the whiteboard, and then you jump on it, and then hopefully you can compare it as the week goes on if you need to make any adjustments or whatnot. So I try to give you the edge. I give you the edge for free. Going 11-1 is just something that really stands out, because it means that had you jumped on those early lines and that first video that I send out, you got to understand, you got to mix and match, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to three-leg parlay a single game. I do it on my sports app as well as the sports book. So I went 3-0 in 3 games. It was only the St. Louis game that I failed at because of the spread. I had them at -1.5, and the game ended 29-28. And that was the reason I didn't cover the spread. Otherwise, if they get that 2-point conversion to make it 30-28, or even a 3-point just to push it up a little further, we would have had a 3-0 record to go 12-0. But we ended up 11-1. Hopefully, you guys were smart enough to mix and match some of these early lines that I was giving you, and you could have won some serious money this past weekend. Like I always said, bet small to win big. But we did have success. Thank God for that, right? Where we were 11-1. At least I know that most of the picks we had were true, were successful, and you guys did very well at the sports book as well as through your sports app. So I'm so happy that everyone made some money this weekend, including myself. So I feel good about that, and I'm hoping we're still on this train as we continuously go further down towards the playoffs. All right, well, let's start getting into some of these matchups for this week. Again, let me just keep my whiteboard here because what I like to do, I'm gonna put right here my week nine, uh, week week nine picks. Okay, my week nine picks, right? UFL. Okay. And then we're going to, as we always do, we line up the teams that are going to do the money lines, and then we do the against the spread. So, right off the bat, for week nine coming up, we're going to take the St. Louis Battlehawks, who are going to play the San Antonio Brahmas. St. Louis at 6-2. They lead their division, okay, for the DC Defenders. Actually, the tiebreaker right now is with the DC Defenders. They're actually tied in the XFL division at 6-2 with the DC Defenders. Excuse me there for a sec. Might be talking a little too fast for myself. And they're going to be playing a San Antonio Brahmas team. They're pretty much one of the worst teams in the league, and they did have a good showing this past weekend, putting up some points. They did fall to make their record 1-7. So they're at the bottom. They really don't have a chance for the playoffs. They're just playing out their season. And maybe they could pull an upset here and there. And this is pretty much a trap game, in my opinion, as it's coming up. Okay, I'm just looking at my whiteboard just in case I have to make any adjustments. I haven't put up anything on the whiteboard yet because I'm trying to right now get you guys ready for this weekend because there's a couple of traps that I'm starting to see right now, okay? The first trap for this game, and let's start off with this game, all right? It's St. Louis Battlehawks 6-2 at San Antonio Brahmas 1-7. Okay, straight up, as a sports bettor, you look at this, the money in Vegas is going to roll to the St. Louis Battlehawks. You just know that, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to play a little game with Vegas, right? Obviously, the money line has to go to the St. Louis Battlehawks, right? I just can't see a talented football team like the Battlehawks, who are tied for the division at 6-2, trying to, well, they have to stay pace with the Defenders because they have an upcoming battle coming up against them. We'll get to that. Anyway, St. Louis Battlehawks 6-2. This could be one of those games where they get a little bit fat during the week, right? And they decide, well, you know what, we're going to go to San Antonio and we're going to whip their ass and move on to the next game. Doesn't necessarily happen like that. Vegas will not allow that. You're going to see how the point spread is at -8 already. Towards the end of the week, I'm looking at that point spread somewhere around, maybe can go up to as much as 9.5, 10, possibly 11. Okay, this is the way Vegas is going to play you because once the money starts rolling in for the St. Louis Battlehawks, they will do what they can to make sure that some money goes towards San Antonio. And it could be either the over and under, which is, we've been hitting a lot of overs. Last weekend was kind of crazy because I hit all the overs. I went 4-0 on the overs right before last weekend started. I said in the video, I said, this is crazy for me to do, to take the overs on every game. And guess what? They all hit. But look at the numbers, right? They were over and unders. I think we had a couple of them that were in their high 30s, right? 36. We had one that was at 39.5. I mean, there were 3 games where the over and under was under 40. Okay, now this weekend, it seems like every game Vegas put out there is over 40. And this is the first game that has an over and under of 41.5. It's at San Antonio. You got the -8 going against the spread. We know that the money line's going to roll towards the St. Louis Battlehawks. Excuse me for a second while I try to clear my throat a little bit. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. But sometimes, once your throat starts getting dry, you just have to put some liquid down there because you got to make sure that, you're speaking clearly to the audience. And I do have trouble at times when I speak to the audience. Okay, so excuse me for, sometimes I ramble on and my words don't come out as clear as they should. But anyway, the first game, St. Louis 6-2 at San Antonio 1-7. What do we like about this game? We know that the Battlehawks have to stay within distance and keep pace with the DC Defenders, who have a tough game coming up. So what you want to do here is you want to money line the St. Louis Battlehawks, right? That seems to be the easy choice, all right? So we're going to write down for the money line, we're going to go Battlehawks here, right? We're going to take the Battlehawks here as the money line. So let me write that down, all right? So you guys don't screw that up, because this weekend, what I'm noticing is all the overs are over 40. So this is going to be the toughest one. We came off a good week, and yet we're going to find ourselves, looking at this game and trying to figure out, hey, are we doing the right thing here? So what you want to do here is take the Battlehawks on the money line, and we're going to jump on the early line. We're going to take that -8, right? -8. Vegas wants to give us the -8. Yep. Guess what? We're going to take the -8 because we believe that at some point as the week goes on, they're going to try to shoot us in the leg and try to up that spread, right? Because they know this is a better talented football team, well coached by Anthony Beck. Despite the fact that San Antonio has a young coach in Peyton Pardee, again, the defense did play well this past weekend. They finally made some plays. Got to give a shout out to the San Antonio defense. They came up with turnovers to keep themselves in the game. But again, if you have to have that many turnovers that your defense has to force to put your offense in better positions, this is why I don't feel confident about San Antonio putting up the numbers that I think they could put up the way they did last weekend, right? Because those turnovers did factor in the way they got those touchdowns, okay? So now the over and under is at 41.5. Guess what, people? We're going to go the under, okay? And the reason I'm going the under is the reason I gave you just before, right? So I gave you that reason, right? Because of the fact that San Antonio finally got some turnovers on defense and managed to play well this past weekend. They did lose the game to drop to 1-7. They're still a very bad football team offensively, all right? They had a flea flicker from the tight end, the Dr. Pepper play, as the coach called it, because the guy that threw it was a quarterback, I believe, in high school, and he threw that play in a championship game. So for fun, remember when I said that these teams will now open up their playbooks? Well, guess what? They are opening up their playbooks, and it worked out for them. A Dr. Pepper play from a high school championship game in which the tight end, who used to be a quarterback in high school, got the flea flicker and threw it downfield. It wasn't a flea flicker. He actually went in motion. Quarterback threw what looked like a screen. Everyone came up, and then he just was able to throw to a wide open wide receiver down the field for a touchdown, and that was a great play. Really, really, I gotta give a hand to the imaginary play calling by San Antonio. But against St. Louis, that's not going to be enough. You're just going to have to be the better team that day. I don't see it. I see St. Louis winning this game just outright. Whether or not they win by 9, 10, 11, or 14, I'm going to take that -8. I really am. I'm going to jump on it. And all the money's going to roll. Listen, all the money's going to roll in Vegas on that. Hold on. Sorry about that, folks. Just need my coffee in the morning, man. I really do, man. I'm a caffeine freak. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I'm taking the under at 41.5. But all the money's going to roll with the St. Louis Battlehawks. So I want you guys to be very careful with that. Let me just put up the whiteboard right now to give you an idea. Okay, we're going to roll with the Battlehawks this weekend, week 9, against San Antonio. It's quite obvious they're the better team. I just can't see the Battlehawks dropping this game. Okay, the combined score, I'm going to take the under. It's 41.5. I just don't see this game going 23-20. What I do see is a score like maybe 27-9, 27-13, right? That could put it at 40. I see a score like that. in the Battlehawks' favor. And then the -8, obviously, they'll cover by 2 touchdowns, in my opinion. They should. This is a very poor San Antonio team that relies on staying in the games with like turnovers or stuff like that. So, I'm just trying to give you guys an edge for free, because what's important here to know too is the fact that when you look at San Antonio, when you look at San Antonio, right, they got a guy named, I believe is Jay Sean Corbin, right? Running back, Jay Sean Corbin. Flash in the pan guy, right? From what I've seen these past couple of weekends, this guy can run the ball. He's solid. They have another running back. I believe Anthony McFarland is either injured or whatnot, because I really haven't seen him do anything on the field these past 2 weekends. And then they got another guy in Aiden Robbins. Okay. So you got a nice three-headed running back system in San Antonio. And that to me is going to be their only hope for this game, to run that ball, keep the game close, for their defense to come up with a few turnovers and possibly pull the upset. I don't see that happening. I do see Vegas trying to trip up the bettors by making that money, the money line, all the money rolling in there to the Battlehawks, and then they're going to try to trip us up with the over and unders. We know that the overs have been hitting like crazy in the UFL, as evident this past weekend, going 4-0 in that over and under with the overs. And then the spread being at -8 is probably going to jack up a little bit as the weekend comes. Okay, so jump on this early at -8 and take the under at 41.5. John Trey Kirkland, is having a so-so year at the wide receiver position. Yet again, he dropped a touchdown pass thrown to him. It was a little bit difficult because anytime you try to bring in the football, into your body, you always have a defender that's going to take a swipe at it. Receivers know that. As he caught the ball and I was about to bring it into his body, the defender came around him, slapped the ball away. He dropped it. I know that on a bang-bang play, when you watch it on live, you think, oh my God, he dropped the touchdown. But when you look at it as slow motion, you can see why. So, I don't want to jump on this guy and say that he's, doesn't have the hands. I don't want to say that. Come on. Anybody could drop a ball like that, especially, let's face it, you try catching a ball, right? And when you're bringing it into your body, the defender immediately comes around and slaps it away from you. That happens. And that's what I think happened. But it was catchable. He should have held on to it. Okay. I mean, you're a professional football player. These are the things that, you have to work on. And John Trey is just having a difficult year this year, but that doesn't mean he's not a good wide receiver. He is a good wide receiver, and he does make plays downfield. Again, they use the tight end for a trick play. Other than that, tight ends are useless in San Antonio. They rarely get in the games. I have been seeing the tight ends get more involved these past 2 weekends, but I like to see Elise Mack become the big guy, the big dog in that. All right. But anyway, this is a game that I really see the money rolling all on the Battlehawks. It's the over and under that I think Vegas is going to fool you with. Right now, Vegas is saying, yeah, we're going to throw that little dagger. What's the best word I can use? They're going to dangle it up there, right? They're going to say, hey, here it is. See if you got the cojones to take the over 41.5, because lately these games are becoming high scoring. I just think this is the game that's going to go under. This could be a game going under 41.5. I see a 27-13 type of football game here. Okay. I do see St. Louis covering. So let's roll with that. Okay. As far as St. Louis, anything concerning going into this game? Well, look, Hakeem Butler looks like he's coming back. Okay, that's going to give the receiving unit a plus. Don't see San Antonio trying to cover this guy. Jackson's playing well. Jacob Sailors, incredible game this past weekend, right? I think I wrote on my notes that Jacob Sailors had a solid performance. I think he was over 100 yards rushing. Okay, I believe that was the case this past weekend. I'm just checking out my notes right now because I want to make sure that I'm on the money with this. And it says here, yeah, I wrote down Jacob Sailors. big game, over 100 yards. So congratulations to him. Looks like St. Louis finally realized how to use this guy. You know, you got to compliment that passing game. Max Duggan continues to run with the ball once he gets it. A couple of plays where he underthrew his wide open wide receivers. I'm sorry that I'm drinking coffee like this, you know, constantly because for some reason my throat's dry this morning, you know. But okay, so let's jump on St. Louis as the money line. We're going to take the under at 41.5, and we're going to take that -8 because they're giving it to us right now, and you got to jump on it, -8. I don't see how you can go wrong on that. Let's go to the next game. We got the Renegades 3-5 at the Memphis Showboats 2-6, the Overtime Kings. Okay, Memphis is coming off a victory in which they won in overtime. Okay, both their victories were actually in overtime this season. And like I always said, this is a good football team, right? This is a team that's had some bad luck during the season. Jim Turner continues to coach well. You could see his fiery competitiveness. Even when they scored that touchdown on a running play, he still got on the old line talking about, you know, you got to block. You got to block. You got to do this. You got to do that. And the guys, they're going back and forth. The old lineman and Jim Turner are like, dude, I did block. I did block. Why don't you look at the film? Look at the film. That was great. That was great. I love moments like that the UFL provides. I wish they could do that in the NFL, but they do it in the UFL, and it's fantastic moments like this. Anyway, Jim Turner, this is going to be a tough task for him. I said that Memphis was good for a couple of wins towards the end of the year. Could this be one of them? You know, this was a tough one to pick because the Renegades have not played well these past few weekends. This is the reason they started off 3-1. Now they're 3-5, 4 straight losses. And let me tell you something. The theme for those losses have been the O-line has not been playing well. Luis Perez has taken a lot of sacks. That's one. The defense is just not coming up with the big plays that they were doing at the beginning of the year. Secondary is really struggling. They're just not. I mean, we saw this again this past weekend, how the wide receivers of the DC Defenders were getting open against the Renegades. And it's a problem. It really is. It's a problem. And also the turnover issue. You know, 4 straight weeks of turning the ball over and at key moments of the game is the reason why the Renegades are struggling right now. 3-5, they're pretty much, I would say, it's going to take a miracle for this team to even get into the playoffs. They're just going to have to win out and just pray that at 5-5, one of the 2 teams in their division, which I doubt is going to lose at least I think they're eliminated, right? Because if the 2 top teams in in their division, actually no, they actually have a chance. I'm looking at my notes, people. Correct me if I'm wrong. No, they don't have a chance. I think they got eliminated. Right, 3-5. Even if they win the next 2 weekends, we'll put them at 5-5. Even if DC and St. Louis drop their games, yeah, the Renegades are pretty much out of it. So, yeah, well, they're out of the playoffs. What happens now? Does the team tank? Does the team, hey, we don't have a chance to win the division. Let's just play out. Let's play individually. Let's play out the rest of the year and see where it goes. I mean, your professionalism has to count in this, right? You want to come out and play well the rest of the season. Hopefully, an NFL team comes calling for one of you guys, right? So this is why a game like this is dangerous for sports bettors, right? You got to really 2 teams going total opposite direction as far as playing, right? I think Memphis has shown that they could play with the big dogs. They're not winning, but they're hanging in there with the big dogs, losing by point here and there. 2 overtime thrillers that they won. Okay, they pulled a huge upset early in the year, a few weekends ago, I should say. And then you got the Renegades. They're backing up. They were in the driver's seat at the beginning, and then they took some bad defeats past few weekends. This was another bad defeat where the O-line just didn't protect Luis Perez. There were turnovers. The Renegades have solid receivers. Canella, Day Hunter, who could come out of the backfield and hurt you. They got Tyler Vaughns. What an incredible game this guy had last night, right? Against the DC Defenders. I mean, this guy was like Lynn Swan or something. It looked like he was putting up Jerry Rice type of shit out there, right? But he is a good receiver, all right? So Renegades have the quarterback, they have the receivers. They're okay with Hunter in the backfield. I just don't know much about the Kalen Balaj situation, okay? Defensively, they've been a disappointment. I put them also in the same category, which kind of sucks, with the San Antonio Brahmas, right? Like their defense is just not making the plays they should be making, right? I just see that they're not helping out their offense as much as they should. I mean, DC has some big runs against them. I mean, the interior line just gets blown up. They they got they got themselves some decent pass rushes and linebackers, and for some reason, like they're just not getting to the quarterbacks. And the secondary is out there, struggling because the opposing quarterback is having too much time. So that's a problem with me. And going into this game at 3-5, you just don't know the mentality of the players at this point. Here we were excited about making a run for the playoffs, and now here we are eliminated from the playoffs. I mean, to me, that's 5-5 is the best you can do to end the season. That's not going to catch St. Louis at 6-2 and the defenders, right? That pretty much, you know, they could play their worst football the next 2 weekends and still end up with a better record than the Renegades. Okay, so now you look at the over and under, right, in this game, saying 40 and a half. 40 and a half. I'm going to take the over at 40 and a half. I just think Memphis is going to come out. I said from the very beginning, Memphis is looking to get a couple of wins under their belt before the season ends. Maybe they want to end on a high note. They certainly look like they were like excited about the fact they won last weekend, right? The overtime kings is what Boogie Roberts, I think, said, right? That's his name. Okay. Is this a trap game for sports bettors? Yes, it is. It really is, because you have a -4. -4. They're hoping, as of right now, I think the money is going to roll towards the Renegades. But this game is being played by Memphis. Memphis has a tough defense, all right? They started playing Troy Williams again. Don't know what's going on with the Dresser Win situation. But this is a game in which, and I'm trying to see if I've wrote anything noteworthy here, right? But you know, Memphis plays solid on defense. They really do. This is a good defensive unit. That -4 means that the Renegades have to win this game by 5. This is a tough one, because I know that the Renegades are much more talented than the Memphis Showboats. But Memphis is talented enough that they hang in there every weekend with every team. And I kept saying it. This is a tough game. I don't know the mentality of the Arlington Renegades, but I think I would like to think that they're professionals and they come into this game with that mindset and say, hey, we want to end the season on a high note. We're not going to lose to a losing team. We're not going to start tanking our season, because we got players that definitely could get a shot back in the NFL, and let's give them a show. And I think the Renegades should just open up their playbook this weekend and just pounce on the Memphis Showboats. Troy Williams is going to probably be the quarterback. If not, if it's Dresser Win, this is a whole different game. I'm still going to take the Renegades as the money line. I'm going to take the over of 40 and a half. And boy, I'm going to take the -4 as a sports bettor. I'm just jumping on it because it's at -4. I just think they could win this game by a touchdown. But I could easily turn around and make that a +4. I could easily take the Showboats in an upset. Is it really an upset? That's how you got to look at this. Is it really an upset if the Memphis Showboats beat the Arlington Renegades this weekend? The way the Arlington Renegades are playing, they're going to now go up against a good defensive line of the Memphis Showboats. And the way Luis Perez is getting hammered out there, how do I know if the Renegades are the team to pick for this one? But this is what I'm going to do because I just think that Vegas put that over and under, and they're trying to trap you guys or trap us sports bettors, I should say. So I'm a money line the Renegades. All right, this will be my second team here on the money line. Am I a sucker for it? I mean, they're eliminated. You don't know the mindset of football players. We all know that you personally, as a sports bettor, have to always take that into consideration as the season comes to an end. We're heading into week 9. We're 2 weekends away before the playoffs start. Renegades got eliminated. Their mindset could be, we're going to go through the motions this week. I hope not. I hope that they give us a show. The UFL has been kind of entertaining these past 2 weekends, right? Giving us some great games. And certainly this past weekend, we saw some good ones, right? I'm going to take the over of 40.5. Over of 40.5. And I'm going to take that -4 with the spread. Am I confident? No. I'm not confident. Okay? Now, I put the Renegades there over 40.5 and -4 against the Memphis Showboats. This is one of those games where I'm not as confident with those picks that I just did. I'm not. I'm not confident. But I will say this. Vegas knows that this is one of those games where it's going to go both ways, right? The money's going to roll either both ways, and people are going to jump on the Showboats. They're going to say, nah, Showboats are better than the Renegades right now. They got a better defense. They're playing at Memphis. They're going to get after Luis Perez. They're going to force turnovers. But I also think that the Renegades are like, listen, man, your secondary is not going to stop our wide receivers. And if Luis Perez gets time, he's going to put points up there. So I'm taking the Renegades, the over and under of 40.5. I'm taking the over. I think this is a game that could be 23-20. With that said, maybe you change that spread from -4 to +4. Again, I'm not confident across the board at any of this. I'm taking a -4. Could this be a 26-20 game by the Renegades? Yeah, I do see that. Right? 26-20 type of game. 23-20 if you're a guy that thinks it's going to be a +4. But I'm looking 26-20. All right? Let's go to that next game now. Let's go to the Stallions. Okay? We got the Panthers at 6-2, at Stallions 5-3. Probably the best game of the weekend. I'm pretty sure that is the best game of the weekend. I don't see any other big game that's in slate for this weekend other than the Panthers. This is another playoff showdown right here. Yet another tough game to bet. They're playing at Birmingham. Like I always said, sports bettors rule. Home team gets a field goal advantage. Stallions did play better this past weekend. Actually, their offense has been playing better. They did suffer a loss because they had a turnover in the final seconds. That turnover doesn't happen. I believe the Stallions would have pulled out that field goal. They would have beaten the St. Louis Battlehawks. They got a good field goal kicker in Mevis, right? And I just felt that turnover just ruined them. That's the reason they're 5-3 today, right? They're in second place behind the Michigan Panthers. This is a game for the division. I think the pride of the Stallions is going to come out. This is going to be a hard-fought game, a great game. I see another great game. Will it be a defensive battle? The point spread, the over and under is at 44.5 as I'm looking at my notes. This is going to be a tough game, 44.5. It could fall under the same type of game we saw with the Stallions and Battlehawks. I see this falling also in the same category. That's why I'm going with the over at 44.5. Stallions, Jamar Smith is playing very well at quarterback. You could see the difference between him and Case Cookers. Case Cookers, I heard, will be available. Okay, but if I'm the Stallions, if I'm Skip Holtz, stick with Jamar Smith. I feel like he's more confident with Jamal in there. I also feel that because he was his college quarterback back in the day, we all saw that when they showed the highlights, all right, with Skip Holtz. There's just something there with Jamar Smith and that offense. I think he's in better command and control with that offense until Alex Magoo ever comes back. But I doubt if Magoo is going to make the impact with the injury that he suffered to come back and play as well. I think the Stallions ought to stick with Jamar Smith. Deion Kane continues to be a fantastic wide receiver, probably the best wide receiver in the league, in my opinion. He could do a lot and kick return as well. Stallions have a lot of talent. It looked like their running game was getting themselves together this past weekend. Let me see if I took a note of that. If I took a note of that running game. I don't think I did, but they did look a lot better running the ball. Okay, so when you look at the Stallions, you look at the way Jamar Smith's playing. He's playing very well, right? And we're going to talk about the Stallions right now before we talk about the Panthers, because this weekend's game is going to be awesome for UFL fans. It's also going to be awesome for the fact that this is for the division. This is for the division, right? This is the battle for first place, right? The loser could put the Roughnecks back into the playoff picture if Roughnecks take care of business next weekend. We'll get to that later. But the Stallions with Jamar Smith looks like the deep ball is a lot better. Okay, he has some touch on it. We saw that the 2 touchdowns he threw. Fantastic catch, by the way, by number 88 from the Stallions. Just a fantastic catch. So we do see, okay, I'm just looking at my notes. We do see that the Stallions really look solid at wide receiver. We really do. Marlon Williams, okay. You got the tight ends. They got 2 of the best tight ends in the league, in my opinion, Jay Sternberger and Jordan Thomas. I mean, these are monsters. I mean, Jordan Thomas is a monster. I mean, this guy makes the difficult catch look easy, right? And he stands, what, 6'5"? He's over 280, looks closer to 300. The guy's just a beast, man. And when the ball's in his zone, he's going to catch it. And he's playing very well this year. Jay Sternberger, not necessarily putting the numbers in the past, but he's still effective. He's still running down the field and getting his numbers. So talent-wise, the Stallions are built to succeed offensively. Now, defensively, they do have some issues. They do give big plays in that secondary. Not really happy with the Stallions secondary. The defensive line, it's kind of average. They do get there. They do get to your face, the Stallions. All right. They do give good push up the middle. They need to get more out of their ends and their rushers. I think we alluded to the fact that secondary gets exposed a lot. They do give up big plays. Little disappointed in that, considering they have a couple of guys that played in the NFL, like Trey Norwood, that could play a whole lot better than what I'm seeing. Like, come on, Trey, let's get out there and let's make some plays, man. So this game's going to be kind of tough to pick, man. And the Panthers are 6-2, deservedly so, well coached by Mike Nolan. Both these teams are well coached. Mike Nolan against Skip Holtz. This is a battle of 2 good head coaches going at it. How they prepare this week, how they put up this game plan is going to be very interesting, because we saw that Bryce Perkins did not play at all this past weekend. They beat the Roughnecks. Etling came in, played well. They had a punt return that set them up for a touchdown. They also had a pick from Jalen McClendon, try to throw a screen, and the guy just came up, ate it up, and ran it all the way back. Houston kind of lost that game against the Panthers because of the sloppiness in the second half. It was a close game, and then Houston pretty much handed them that victory, because they did play sloppy at the second half, and the Panthers ran away from it from there. But they are vulnerable in that secondary, the Michigan Panthers, against the Stallions offense. The running game is going to be the most important thing in this game for the Panthers. They're going to have to keep that ball on the ground and keep that ball away from the Stallions offense. If they have any chance of winning this weekend, they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to get Toa, McCrary, and they have another running back, number 20. We haven't seen much these past few weekends. He's kind of a speedster. He had a big game earlier in the year, and then haven't seen him since. They haven't used him as much since. The wide receiving with just number 17 making the plays for them. Vaughns, I believe is his name. But I'm concerning with the quarterback situation right now. You know, how bad is the injury to Bryce Perkins? How mobile he might be against the Stallions defense. Stallions do have a good pair of linebackers out there. Do I see the Panthers winning this game without Bryce Perkins? No. Do I see them winning this game with Bryce Perkins? And that seems to be the most important question for this game. Etling coming in, Perkins having that week off, probably nursing a minor injury compared to a major injury. Could be a hamstring thing, I don't know. Haven't gotten the update yet. But if Perkins starts, it's going to be exactly how I saw the point spread. At the moment, they got the Panthers to win this game at -1.5. I don't see it that way. I see the Stallions winning this game just so that they could be tied for first. I'm taking the +1.5. The over is at 44.5. Yeah, I do see this game getting up there. But if the Panthers go straight into that running game, again, if Etling plays, I think the Panthers are going to go into running game mode, and that over and under is going to be under. Okay, so be aware of that, guys. Be aware of that. Again, I'm trying to give you this edge because I see what I see. I trust my eyes. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the type of games we're expecting, right? I'm trying to give you this edge, right? We did well last weekend to go 11-1 in everything that I was talking about. But I would love to go undefeated because that just means we knew what we were talking about. So this is a situation where the Stallions, I'm taking a money line. I have the over at 44.5 because I'm expecting Bryce Perkins to play. I think points are going to be back and forth here. Okay. And, you know, because I'm picking the Stallions, they're the underdog, I'm jumping on the line at +1.5. Seems like I'm taking the underdogs all the way through in this one. But Michigan, if Etling plays, they're going to go to a running game. They're going to go to a running game. That's almost guaranteed. They're going to try to keep this game close, and hopefully a turnover here and there gets them the victory. This looks like one of those games where if Etling plays, they're going to have to go to running game. I don't trust Etling through the air. We've seen him play. He's not a guy that's going to make you, like, can you be confident with him behind center? A game manager, okay. We're trying to win you the game, no. Bryce Perkins can win you the game, whether it's running with the football under duress or throwing the ball downfield and hitting his targets. If Bryce Perkins starts, this is going to go over 44.5. If Etling starts, this is going to be under 44.5. I'm thinking Bryce Perkins is going to play. I think it is going to be a great game between two solid teams who are, you know, getting better as the season's coming to an end. The Stallions, I know they lost to St. Louis. That was disappointing, but it was a key turnover late in that game with seconds left. If they don't turn that ball over, I believe the Stallions win that game. And probably the Stallions roll into this game as the favorite. I'm going to stick with the Stallions on the money line. I'm going with the over on the 44.5. And I'm going to take that +1.5. I'm going to write that down for you guys so I can show you the whiteboard yet again. Okay. So let's take the Stallions. Okay. We're going to take the Stallions as the underdogs. We're going to go to over 44.5, and we're going to take that +1.5, right? We're going to do that. All right. Let me show you on the whiteboard where I'm at. Doing the whiteboard a little bit differently this weekend. Okay, didn't get much views last weekend for week 8. Didn't get much views. And it cost a lot of people across the nation an opportunity to win 11 times. This is why I say, when I put stuff out here, it's not because, you know, uh, I'm trying to give you guys an edge. I'm just trying to make this an opportunity for you guys when you go betting that we understand that we could be on the same page with some of our picks. This is going to be a difficult weekend. We're definitely not going to. I mean, it would be great to go 11-1 again, maybe 12-0. I'd be jumping out of my seat like I did this weekend. But this is going to be a difficult weekend. I'm hoping we could find a way to go 12-0. That means everybody's making money. And this is one of the reasons why I tell you guys, I jump on these early lines on Monday because I know as the weekend comes to a close, these lines are all going to change, right? All sports bettors will tell you that. And, when I look at this game, Panthers at Stallions, Vegas is happy because the money's going to go both ways. They're going to roll with the Panthers and they're going to roll with the Stallions. So Vegas is very happy. They're going to make their money. It's going to probably be 50, 52% with the favorite, maybe 48, 49% with the underdog. I'm going underdog. I'm taking the Stallions to win. Money line that. It's at Birmingham. I'm taking the over at 44.5. I think it's going to be a high scoring game between these two, just like last weekend with the Battlehawks and Stallions. And I'm taking a plus 1.5 because they're the underdogs. I'm going to jump on it. This could go down to as plus one. Might even be a pick'em game towards the end of the weekend. Depends how Vegas sees the money rolling in. This is going to be a tough one for sports bettors. It's a tough pick. I just like the Stallions all the way through in this one. Like I said, if Bryce Perkins plays, it's going to be fun to watch this game. Edling plays. This could be one of those running game situations where they keep those points at a premium. Toa and Nate McCurry are two solid running backs. That could hurt the Stallions' defense. But the Stallions have a quick strike offense with Jamar Smith. He's also tough to bring down. He could make plays with his legs. He's a tough guy, especially on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 situations. Sometimes I wish that the Stallions would use a tush push with Jamar Smith because I just think that, when you got a quarterback that size, you gotta utilize him and get the best of his talents because Jamar Smith is a bigger guy than Jalen Hurts. And you could definitely do tush pushes with that guy. Oh, my coffee's getting cold. That sucks, right? I don't know. There's people that like iced coffee. I'm not an iced coffee guy. Now, I took out the coffee to make hot. I needed that because I felt my throat was dry, and drinking coffee in the morning is like an awesome thing. Now it's getting all cold. I think that's enough with my sips. But anyway, that's where I'm going with this game. This is going to be a fantastic game. Yet again, the UFL is giving us a fantastic matchup. We're getting towards the end of the season. This is a battle, an important battle for the division right here. Stallions have to win this game. Dropping to 5-4 can open the door for the Roughnecks. This is a very, very huge game for the Stallions. And I just feel like they're going to be at attentive all week with their playbooks, studying. Skip Holt's going to put together a solid game plan. I love the way he coaches out there. I love the way that he has this confidence with Jamar Smith. I think they could run with Jamar Smith the rest of the way. This is going to be a very dangerous team. They beat the Panthers here. Look out, UFL. Because Jamar Smith right now is really maybe the spark they needed at that position. And he's playing very well. Again, he didn't lose that game last weekend. There was a fumble by the running back. And in the last seconds, he was driving that team down the field. They were about to win that game. I believe Mevis would have hit that field goal and they win. That was my personal opinion about that game. But they didn't. And that turnover cost them. But I think in this game, I think Jamar Smith, the Stallions are enough. They're just too talented at the receiving position. Running back situation, it might get there as the year ends. There's a little improvement going on with that. So I'm taking the Stallions. Um, Also, of note, um, looking at the Bryce Perkins and Jordan Ta'amu MVP race, since we're talking about Michigan, and now we're going to talk about the DC Defenders game coming up. Um, that's going to hurt him in the MVP because I think sometimes people will look at that and say, well, Michigan won that game without Bryce Perkins. Sometimes voters do that. Sometimes voters will say, is this a product of Bryce Perkins playing great and making his team great around him? Or is this a product of just Michigan's a talented football team well coached by Mike Nolan? So missing out on last weekend's game probably hurt Bryce Perkins in the MVP race. Not saying that he doesn't have a chance. I'm just saying that sometimes it's games like this, especially when that game was tight and Michigan pulled it out with their defense and everything, and they had a special teams play. Sometimes voters have a tendency to say, well, you know what, he missed one game here, and then at the start of the year, he was being rotated at the start of the year. So, yeah, Jordan's been playing every snap from day one. Yeah, we got to give it to Jordan. That's where it stands right now, in my opinion, with the MVP race. Um, Now let's talk about the next and final game of the weekend. The DC Defenders 6-2 at the Houston Roughnecks 3-5. Disappointing, yet another loss by the Houston Roughnecks when the beginning of the season is why they're at where they're at right now. The bad quarterback play to start the season of going 0-3. I'm not a CJ Johnson head coaching fan. And, they get a guy in McClendon, Jalen McClendon, who probably should have been a starter from day one. Okay, maybe they'd be 5-3 instead of 3-5, but they're 3-5. Sloppy performance at the end. That included Jalen McClendon, bad interception, great play by the Michigan defender, picking it off and running it back. It was just a sloppy second half. It put them in this position. Just like the weekend before that, they had a demoralizing defeat where they had victory in hand and then lost. Now they're going up against an aggressive defense in the DC Defenders. We saw them play against Arlington. They just attacked Arlington from every phase. The defense was a little lacking in the secondary. They continue to struggle a little bit there, but they have a fantastic interior line led by Jordan Wallace, who continues to make plays. I think this guy has an NFL future. I think if NFL teams are looking for a D lineman for like depth or somebody that could come off the bench and help their D lineman, this is a guy I would look into. Jordan Wallace, man, he's playing solid. Really, really aggressive defensive tackle. They have good edge rushers. Malik Fisher's playing well, causing turnovers. They have good linebackers. The secondary obviously is made up of several players from the NFL. DeAndre Baker, Thompson is playing out of his mind at the other corner positions, but they do let big plays happen. And they continue, and listen, DC Defenders, we know you're an aggressive defense. We know that you have guys that can make plays. But can we stop with the stupid penalties? It's really annoying, especially for DC Defender fans. If you're a DC Defender fans, I'm not. But if you are, that has to be the most annoying thing you're seeing. It's almost like they're undisciplined at times when it counts the most, when they're trying to win a game and all of a sudden a stupid penalty happens. They almost lost to Arlington because of a stupid penalty. Okay, so they need to stop that. They need to start understanding the time, the situation, the down and distance, and what's going on at that moment. Okay, it's just sometimes they play undisciplined defense. I made a note of that because that seems to be the Achilles heel of their defense right now, being undisciplined and playing stupid and creating stupid penalties. But they are a fantastic unit. When they blitz, they get at you. They create chaos. I call them the most chaotic defense in the league. Honestly, they're probably the best defensive unit in the league, in my opinion. With Memphis being not too far back, because Memphis does have a solid defense. Okay, they're not winning games, but I mean, they shouldn't be 2-6. That's for sure. But when you look at DC's defense, they're chaotic. It's just the stupid penalties. Now, let's get to what that offense can do. All right? They're going to be going up against a good defense, right? Houston Roughnecks. They got some good players, O'Neal, Benson. Okay. They got some good players on defense. They do hang around in games. Houston Roughnecks, this is a battle of two defenses, I think. They're gonna be hitting out there this weekend. They are. They're gonna be putting pain across the field this weekend. You're gonna see guys limping off the field. You're gonna probably see guys exhausted. I'm trying to get over some injury this weekend. That's how hard hitting this game's gonna be. And this is one of the reasons I'm gonna take the under of 45.5. I just think that over and under is way too high for a game like this. So I'm gonna take the under because I think both these defenses are gonna knock people out in this game. The defenders out offensively, Jordan Ta'amu at this moment has a little edge on that MVP race. He has been playing very well the past few weekends. So as critical as I was at the beginning of the year, I am now on Jordan Ta'amu and saying, you know what? I'm so proud of you to prove me wrong as the season went on. Now, you're starting to hit your playmakers on the dime, something that I was not seeing at the beginning of the year. You were inconsistent to me. Seems like you're getting your shit together and you're running the ball when you need to, right? When you don't see the play developing, what do? You take off, you run. And I'm seeing that from Jordan Ta'amu. He's doing very well at the position. He has a solid group of wide receivers. I would say between the Stallions and the DC Defenders, they have tremendous units at that wide receiver position. I mean, Ty Scott, I finally saw him play this weekend. Mickens continues to make plays on the outside. Braylon Sanders, I did not see much this weekend. I don't know if he was hurt. They did bring in another player that I saw come in. He did have a drop. I forgot his name. Don't mean to be disrespectful. Rowland, Chris Rowland continues to be a threat out of the backfield as well as a receiver. So he's doing his thing. He did have a fumble in that game. However, he recovered from that. He's one of those players where he doesn't let the last play affect him. That's what I love about this kid. And he is playing better. So offensively, DC is just a better offensive unit than the Houston Roughnecks. Roughnecks, obviously, they have, at running back, Zaquandre White, who continues to every now and then have a splash play. Okay. Wide receiving unit, crazy catch. What was it? Chisholm, who made that catch, and wow, that was a crazy catch this past weekend. Awesome. Keys also on the outside. Hall, but they don't have enough offensively, in my opinion, to hang in there with the DC Defenders. I think defensively they'll hang in there. Offensively, I don't see them going no more than. I think the best they can do in this game is get 20 points. This is the reason I'm going with the over 45.5, because I just think DC is going to get at least 20 also. And I think the game's going to end up like maybe 28, 23, 27, 23, 28-20 type of football game. I'm going with the Defenders. I'm going with the under 45.5. Did I do that? Did I do that correctly? See, this is the thing that scares me about this game. I think both these teams are rock'em and sock'em type defenses, right? But here I am telling you that the scores are going to be somewhere around 28-20, something like that, blah, 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 blah. And I said that the best thing that the Roughnecks can do is 20. I don't think they're going to get to 20. But again, the undisciplined football of the Defenders' defense allows offenses to put up those type of numbers, right? Look how many points they gave to Arlington over stupid penalties. All right? They give up the big plays. Tyler Vaughns was just running rampant in that secondary, as well as Canella. Does the DC Defenders, can they stop McClendon? They don't have the weapons like Arlington. So this is why I think that I'm taking the under of 45.5. I want to make that clear because I think I was throwing out these crazy scores at you, and you guys were like, wait a minute. This guy says he's taking the under, but meanwhile he's saying that it's going to end up 28-20, and that's my bad. That's my bad. Sometimes like I said, I talk faster than what I hear, right? But the reality is we're going to go Defenders as the money line, right? I just don't see the Defenders losing this game. Again, right? We're going to take the under. It's at 45.5. Again, and we're going to talk about this in a second. And then they're -3 to win. They're saying that the defenders will win by 4. I agree. I agree with what Vegas just put out there. You're going to see a lot of money line play towards the defenders, and you're also going to see a lot of money rolling towards the defenders. Here's my whiteboard. You guys can see that. All right, I'm taking the defenders. The over and under is under 45.5. I'm taking the under. I'm taking against the spread the -3. That's my final whiteboard. All right, I'll probably show it one more time before we air out. But yeah, I'm taking the DC defenders in this one. I'm taking the over and under. I'm taking the under at 45.5 because, like I said, right, Roughneck's defense is not that bad. I just feel like maybe both these defenses are going to show up and rock 'em and sock 'em type of game. Obviously, the defenders have the edge with the MVP play of Jordan Ta'amu, as well as they got the weapons on the outside to create points. I think McClendon is a playmaking quarterback who could use his legs to get away from the pocket. They're going to have to do that this weekend against the defenders because they're going to be coming at him. So they're going to try to confuse him. He does have the arm to get it over the top, but I don't think he has the playmaking receivers. There were some incredible catches in that last weekend's game. I think Chisholm was one of them. But if you're going to play like that, and I know they played against a tough defensive unit, a more disciplined defensive unit in Michigan, and they were able to make plays against them. But that second half got sloppy. I'm not a C.J. Johnson fan. Again, my coach of the year and still coach of the year candidate right now is definitely Shannon Harris. Just really coaching out of his mind right now, especially what that coaching staff went through at the beginning of the year, where you saw 2 coaches leave for college. So looking at this game, I have the defenders and the -3 and the under 45.5. Again, Vegas this weekend has noticed that a lot of these games are going on the over side, especially this past weekend where all 4 games went over. And before this weekend coming up, it seems like there was always a couple of games that were going to be under the 30, the 40, under the 40, I should say, like around 39 and then under. Now I think Vegas is catching up, and they're saying, you know what, we're going to put these outrageous numbers out. That's an outrageous number, by the way, 45.5. I mean, I've watched these 2 teams play throughout the year. 45.5. I mean, do they look like they're, I mean, outside of DC, when they could get into high scoring games with Arlington, right? I mean, they have an offense that could hang in there, right? But the Roughnecks aren't a team that hangs in there with their offense. They hang in there because of their defense. Their offense just does enough because they finally found a quarterback. Their coaching staff, I'm not big on with C.J. Johnson. Again, this guy can be a great assistant coach, but head coaching material, I just don't see it. You got some assistant coaches, some head coaches around the league that should be assistant coaches in the NFL. CJ's one of them. Chris Wilson, obviously, he won a Super Bowl with the Eagles as an assistant coach, a defensive coach. Okay, you got Jim Turner, a great assistant coach. I believe he was in the NFL as an O-line coach, and I think he should continue doing that. If he wants to continue being a head coach, I see him doing way better than what I mean, he's doing a lot better than what I expected. Okay, I do see maybe Jim Turner maybe coming back to head coach Memphis again. If not, look, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of NFL teams that could use an offensive line coach, especially the Pittsburgh Steelers. My team in the NFL, right? They could use an O-line coach, and that's the truth. But in all retrospect about these upcoming games, that game right there is, I think every game this weekend, because of the over and unders are in the high 40s, right? Starting from the first game all the way to the end game. That 45.5, I don't know. Vegas likes to trap their sports bettors. They think all the money's going to roll with the defenders anyway, so they know that the money line's going to be that. I don't know what the minuses are. Even if you parlayed all 4 games this way, I don't know how much that would pay. Probably not much, right? I'm pretty sure every game's going to be at -110 for all these teams I pick. When it comes to the over and unders, I think they're too high this weekend. I think I took two overs and two unders. It's not like last weekend where I was really saying from last weekend, oh yeah, I'm taking the overs, man. I don't feel so good about this weekend, about any of the unders or overs. I don't feel so good. The spreads, I don't feel good either. This is going to be a really tough weekend for anybody to come out victorious. Last weekend, we did fantastic. It was just one of those weekends where you just knew you was going to do well. You really did. And unfortunately, I wish the St. Louis Battlehawks would have went for three when they tied the game at the end. I mean, they should have went for three because realistically, you got to think that the Stallions were playing for overtime too. You got to think that, hey, if they get 31, if they get that three, we could tie it up with a field goal and we go into overtime, right? That's what was shocking to me, that they went for one to make it 29-28. So, is that a Vegas thing? I don't know, but what was it, -1.5 for that game, right? Let me see if I look at my it was -1.5, right? So I lost because of that. I could have went 3-0 in that game. I would have had an undefeated record, but I'm still dumbfounded by the 1 point play. They made it. Congratulations, and it took a turnover to seal the game. But what if that turnover doesn't happen and you lost the game 31-29? Can you imagine what the press clippings are at the end of the game? Why didn't you go for three, Anthony? Why didn't you go for three at the end when you scored? You got to play for overtime, Anthony. You can't expect your defense is going to, especially the way Jamal Smith was playing at that game. So we should have been 12-0 instead of 11-1. And if everybody had jumped on my Monday morning madness of getting the early lines, a lot of people would have won a lot of money this past weekend. I'm hoping to do the same for this weekend, right? That's the whole thing, right? We gotta win every weekend. We don't take losses. We don't take it lightly either. Another 11-1 weekend, I'll take. 12-0, perfect. I'll take that. This weekend, this is going to be tough. If I could get anything like I did this past weekend, I'd be ecstatic. This is going to be a tough one. I don't like the spreads. I don't like the over and unders. I do like my money line picks. That seems to be where I'm pretty solid with the 4-0. Over and unders, man, you guys, mix and match. Mix and match. Go with your hunches. Trust your eyes. Play. Maybe you want to jump on what I'm putting up there now, and then as the weekend as we get closer to the weekend, maybe change it up and go a different way in your parlays, or maybe go a different way in your thinking, and maybe throw a little bit more money around. Like I said, bet small and win big. So maybe instead of $10 betting, on a parlay, maybe go drop it down to $5 and create more legs for yourself, more parlays for yourself. Sports bettors always say, "Oh, why you parlay? You lose one, that's it, it's over with." Hey, listen, we went 11-1, and if somebody had mixed and matched last weekend's board, my whiteboard, they're dancing right now. Depending on how much money they put on those parlay, they're dancing right now. And if they did those single game 3-leg parlays with the money line, the over and unders, and the spread, they're dancing right now. So 11-1 last weekend on Monday morning was awesome. Awesome. To wake up Monday morning this week and say that you're 11-1 is even better. But I would love to wake up one day and say I'm 12-0, right? But we are heading in a good direction, okay? I'm above 500 on the money lines, over and unders, and against the spread. So, like I said, even the great ones, they struggle, right? Anybody that tells you that they're hitting 80, 90% of the games is bullshit. Look, we went 11-1. I still think I'm not going to go bragging about it. It feels good, right? It feels good to say, hey, I'm 11-1. I know what I'm talking about. Trust my eyes. You're getting this for free. I'm giving you an edge. I know what I'm talking about. Come on, come with me. Roll with me. Honestly, it doesn't play out that way, man. It really doesn't. And we all know as sports bettors, it's never guaranteed, right? No victory is guaranteed and no betting performance is guaranteed, right? What I am guaranteeing is giving you an opportunity to mix and match, or to maybe look at my picks as which way should I roll with it? Which way would be best? And right now, the way I look at it is This is going to be a tough weekend. I don't think it's going to be as easy as last weekend, but I tell you what, if we could roll out of this with 10 or more victories, I'd be very, very ecstatic. I'd be very ecstatic. The playoffs are coming up. You're going to see bad teams start opening up their playbooks. You're going to see teams like the Arlington Renegades, who I believe they're just officially eliminated. It depends what their mentality is going into that game against the what is it, Memphis? Memphis Showboats. Showboats, the Overtime Kings. Um, they knew their season ended a couple of weekends ago, but yet they're playing like we don't care. We're going to come out and kick your ass. We don't care. We don't care that we're the underdogs. We love it. We love this underdog thing. And they have two good quarterbacks, Troy Williams and Dresser Wynn. I think whoever starts, Dresser Wynn, you can't go wrong. Troy Williams, you can't go wrong. Whoever starts, they're gonna put up a good game. Um, Again, player props. If you want to go player props, they're so unpredictable in a league like this. I love Deion Kane, what he's doing. Hakeem Butler seems to be waking up. Um, Quarterbacks, if Bryce Perkins plays this weekend, that's a good player prop. Jordan Tyoma was a good player prop. Um, Luis Perez is always putting up good numbers at the quarterback position. Max Duggan, more rushing yards than passing. I mean, you could get about 40 to 50 yards with this guy running. This guy runs into the end zone. He's good for a rushing touchdown. Running backs, listen, man, you got a nice running back tandem going with the Panthers with Toa and McCrary. Not far behind Memphis. Okay, they got some good running backs there. Deneric Prince, Wes Hills, right? Um, Jada McClendon, another good guy for a player prop for Houston. They do depend on him a lot to make plays. I know I'm forgetting a lot of people. DC wide receivers, they're very good. The main guys, don't know. I don't know if Braylon Sanders was a decoy this past weekend. Maybe he did play. I didn't notice him. San Antonio, this Jay Sean Corbin guy. I'm starting to really pay attention to this guy as the season's coming to an end, but he's certainly putting up good player prop numbers. But that's pretty much what I'm seeing right now as far as player props. Everything else, Jordan Thomas at tight ends, Canella from Arlington Renegades, Jordan Thomas from Birmingham, Jay Sternberger from Birmingham. Those are guys that are giving you good player prop numbers. All right. You got to always think that these are guys that can get into the end zone as well, right? Not so much if you could put together a parlay of players that are going to get into the end zone, that could help you win significant money, depending how much you put on it. I think if you pick like 10 players, put down like a $10 to $20 bet, and if those 10 produce and get in the end zone, you're going to make some decent money on that. But like I said, it's an unpredictable league. Turnovers with roster changes. You see it at the quarterback position. So, I'm not big on player props in a league like this. The NFL is quite different because you know who's going to play week in, week out. In a league like this, an injury could be significant. They might stay out 2 weeks. Look, we didn't see Bryce Perkins at all this weekend. And I'm sure there was a lot of people this weekend that took the Michigan Panthers to win and were sweating it. When that game was 14, I believe it was 14 to 12 at halftime, they were sweating it. They were like, I didn't know Bryce Perkins wasn't going to play. I would have never picked Michigan. But, a defensive touchdown, a special teams play, and you won that game by, 14, something like that, right? What was the final? 30 to something, right? 30 to, I don't know what the final was. Man, I should have taken a note of that. But imagine sweating, watching that game and going, I picked Michigan and Bryce Perkins is not playing. This is what I'm talking about. The unpredictability of this league. But anyway, let's hope we get this weekend's games. All right, let me show you the whiteboard again. Right, this will be the final time I show that whiteboard. There it is, right there. Those are my money line picks. Those are my over and under picks. Those are my against the spread picks. Over and unders are way high this weekend, so that's going to be tough. And a couple of spreads there are definitely not looking the way I wanted them to look like, right? I feel like Vegas is trying to trip us up in his league. We just have to stay ahead of them, get the early lines, and see how that plays out as the weekend goes on. But right now, the way it looks, I'm rolling with my picks. Again, mix and match my picks or find whatever works for you. I'm sure some of you guys last weekend looked at my overs and I took the overs all weekend and we're saying, this guy's crazy. He's taking the overs. Guess what? They all hit. Vegas right now is starting to see that the overs are hitting, and now they're throwing the overs like instead of below 40, now they're going over 40. That's how Vegas does it, man. They're not in the business of losing money. That's why I tell a lot of sports gamblers out there, don't get crazy when you're gambling in leagues like this, right? Sports bettors have to realize that you're not, leagues like this, you take it for what they are, right? The unpredictability. That's how you got to look at this league. The unpredictability. Some weekends are going to be great, like we had this past weekend. Some weekends are going to be average, like we just barely hit over 500. We had that happen to us already. So, as much as the excitement was for this past weekend and me jumping off the couch, hitting on those all three games, right? I went 3-0 on three separate games, 3-leg parlays. That was great. Okay, so just that one game, we went 2-1. If St. Louis goes for that 3 points, this could have been a 12-0 weekend, and we would have been dancing. But again, it's the unpredictability. But if I miss anything, just leave it in the comments. Chucky Valentine, if you're out there, I want to hear from you how you did this past weekend. All right. I know you've been watching us, so keep up the good work. Hopefully you're winning as well. Hopefully you took some of my picks, Chucky, this past weekend. Okay, and you did well with them. I hope you really did well. I hope you parlayed and mixed and matched, and maybe you came out undefeated yourself, right? Maybe you came, show me what you did, man. And if you did win more than 10 games, like let's say you have a parlay with 10 legs on it and you won it, I'm pretty sure you did with the way the picks went this past weekend from my whiteboard. But again, jump on these lines early. Jump on what Vegas is giving you early because it's going to help you in the end. Let's just hope we do well this weekend. So, guys, with that said, I wish you the best this weekend, and let's continue having this streak going. Right now we're hot. We're red hot. Strike when the iron is hot is the old saying, right? So let's continue doing well, and let's keep beating Vegas, and let's make this money. Okay, guys, hit that like and subscribe button. I'm Casino Pete, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next weekend and looking forward to winning again this weekend coming up. Week 9 coming up. You saw my picks, and let's go get them. Peace out, fellas. And another thing, before we leave, I know I made a note of it somewhere. Yeah, listen, the biggest thing right now as a sports bettor is getting the early lines, and then as the week goes on, you're gonna line them up and see where it stands. All right, that's important. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because I know there's great sports bettors and sharp bettors out there that wait towards the end of the week to jump on it before the game starts. But I like to do the early hits. I like to put my stuff out there first. All right. Remember, giving you this edge for free. You don't have to pay me for any of these picks. These picks come to you courtesy of me. Okay. And they're for free. You can't go wrong. Let's continue this hot streak, people. Good luck this weekend and hope to see you next weekend. Hit that like and subscribe button. I'm out. Casino Pete's out. Enjoy.